What's up, Capital Wastelanders? Welcome to another Fallout 3 run, and this one's a little different than the ones you've seen on the channel at this point. Nephi, Boone, Raoul, and our NCR Trooper were runs all done courtesy of the Tale of Two Wastelands mod. As Butch DeLoria, we're playing on vanilla Fallout 3, and I'm pretty pumped. Not only is Butch my favorite character in the game with Three Dog as a very close second, but Fallout 3 is actually the first game of the series I ever played, so it's always fun to return to the base game. Here's a rundown of the rules. It's been a while, so let's review them. In combat, I can only wear the Tunnel Snake's outfit like I'd want to wear anything else, and use weapons available to Butch. Now, on the list here, you can see Butch's toothpick, but I went with a regular switchblade over the toothpick, because it's a bit weaker, and by my own rules, I can use any variant of weapon available to us. And we also start with a 10mm, so the only thing the console command in is the best outfit in the game. That said, Butch can also be given the baseball bat or the BB gun courtesy of the Lone Wanderer during the events of escape, so we can use those as well. None of our weapons are particularly strong, but they should be okay early on. Oh, and unfortunately, no Super Slam in Fallout 3, but we're gonna want to invest in melee anyway. Speaking of melee weapons, our added stipulation to Fallout 3 runs on this channel is that we have to obtain the bobbleheads pertaining to our tagged skills. Now, interestingly enough, Butch actually has 4 depending on what point in the game you encounter him in. Having these 4 to choose from, we're going to go with small guns, melee weapons, and science, so that's what we're going to be collecting. And just like with his tagged skills, Butch has different special allocations depending on which point in the game you encounter him in. So I went ahead and did myself a little bit of a solid here, going with the one from Fallout Shelter because Butch absolutely has a 9 in charisma. Since this is the first vanilla Fallout 3 run on the channel, we're going to be going through the main story bit by bit. Whether it's been a while or if you haven't played Fallout 3 at all yet, you'll be in for quite some fun. And considering the scene that's being set for our story here, it actually works out quite nicely. Speaking of which, let's set that scene. Now, as you saw at the start, we ran out of Vault 101 without fighting any security guards. Normally, Butch will stay in his room with his mother, whether or not the Lone Wanderer chooses to help him out with this small side quest. Here, in this alternate timeline, the Lone Wanderer does in fact assist Butch by lending him their baseball bat. The Lone Wanderer does save Amada by taking out Officer Mack, but the Overseer is able to appeal to their sense of mercy, opting for a peaceful solution. Unfortunately, the Lone Wanderer's naivety proves to be their downfall, as the Overseer was lying, and with the aid of additional security, kills the Lone Wanderer. But more on that later. Butch, in this timeline, does still help his mother and overcome his fear of radroaches. But this time, Butch opts to follow the Lone Wanderer. They've instilled a bit more bravery in our favorite Tunnel Snake earlier than the events of a normal Fallout 3 run. The Lone Wanderer helped Butch when they didn't have to, so Butch figures to return the favor by at least helping his new friend escape. Unfortunately, however, he is too late. He does hear the gunshot that ends up killing the Lone Wanderer, and because he's nearby, the Overseer, courtesy of a security guard who saw the pair talking in a corridor, Butch being given the baseball bat, declares Butch a traitor and wants him dead too, for reasons of Butch probably, definitely, colluding with the Lone Wanderer. I mean, it's Overseer Alphonse, he's already crazy, so makes total sense, right? Given the context that the Overseer tolerated the existence of the Tunnel Snakes to torment the Lone Wanderer, and, in one of the entries you can read in his terminal, is considering dissolving the gang, the Overseer now has a perfect excuse to do so now that Butch's services are no longer required. Now, in that entry, what prompts the Overseer to consider this in the main timeline is that the formation of the Tunnel Snakes came with the unintended side effect of Butch and his gang bullying Amada, sometimes even worse than the Lone Wanderer. Now, when we return to Vault 101, if we choose to, in a typical run, Butch does express a deep desire to leave the vault. The Lone Wanderer and James have planted the seeds of rebellion with their departure from 101 within the citizens of Vault 101. So while he may have thought about it at some point in this alternate timeline, well, he's forced out as the alternative is being shot dead, just like the friend he never got to fully repay. Our hero does have a goal, though. Mirroring the Lone Wanderer in the main timeline, Butch will seek James out, but for different reasons. Why did he leave the vault? Why would he not bring his kid with him? Was he just using Jonas as a means to an end? Nah, that can't be right. James was a goody two-shoes. Also, James is the only person in the Capital Wasteland that Butch would know at this point in time. Considering their history, like, James stealing the spring from his switchblade when they were 10, and Butch being a bully of the Lone Wanderer. I'm gonna take a wild guess here and say James doesn't like Butch very much, so that reunion's gonna be interesting. Anyway, questions for later, as our hero's gotta learn fast, or he'll be easy prey out here in the Capital Wasteland. Oh, and one last thing before we officially start. I know, it's like 5 minutes in, I'm still talking about setting up the scene here. Butch's hair came out a bit darker than I thought. I swear it didn't look like that in the character creator, but considering that Butch is a barber, maybe he experimented on himself and, ended up with his hair being a bit darker than usual. Yes, I picked a brown shade in the character creator, and it looks black. It looks cool, I think, but, not quite Butch, but I figured just in case you were wondering, that's why. Ah, these new mods are so pretty. This old man is not used to such pretty looking stuff. Anywho, after establishing a bit of a reputation for himself in Megaton, courtesy of helping Moira Brown out with one quest so far, and disarming the bomb, Butch finds himself in quite a pickle here battling some super mutants when a very familiar, kind of friendly force comes around. According to those notes he, borrowed from Colin Moriarty's terminal, making his way to GNR and talking to the lovely Sarah Lyons. I'm sure there's one question on Butch's mind because it was the same exact thing I thought when I first played this game. How the heck is James so badass to be going through all this stuff? There's safety in numbers, and as much as I do love our boy Butch, he is a little bit of a coward, so he would absolutely take the help from the Brotherhood of Steel. But I mean, you don't have to be a bit of a wimp to accept help from these guys when the entire wasteland, at least as part of it, is crawling with super mutants, ghouls, and the like. And not a moment too soon either, as the mother of all mutants, one of the few super mutant behemoths in the game, makes his entrance, and well, without the Brotherhood of Steel here, Butch would be pretty dead. It's actually kind of cool that if you skip this, which you can do, by going straight to Vault 112 if you know the location, the Brotherhood of Steel aren't here to help you out. And it's pretty clear from just how powerful this thing is that staying back and using our 10mm is the way to go. And I mean, the Brotherhood of Steel Knights are doing more damage than we are, but every little bit does help. Now, I find that the best way to battle the Super Mutant Behemoth is when you draw his aggro to run back towards the entrance behind the sandbags because he can't fit. One war of attrition later, and we got some sweet, sweet loot on this guy. I'd love to see a Super Mutant Behemoth wield a 10mm pistol. I enjoy the fact that that big green has a ton of stuff on him inexplicably, although he is a pretty big guy. Maybe I guess it does make sense that he would be able to carry it. Anyway, Sarah Lyons thanks our hero, even though we played little part in this battle, so we can go ahead and talk to Three Dog and get our next clue as to where James is gone. And now, just like the Lone Wanderer in the main timeline, Three Dog is willing to part with this information, where James went, but we gotta help him out first. And now, normally, I don't think Butch would bother with it, but since he's in a bit of a rock and a hard place right now, he is going to comply with it. And I mean, hey, there's just something cool about Three Dog. He would make a great tunnel snake, Butch thinks. So let's go ahead and help this guy. Tunnel snakes rule the good fight. Now that's a slogan we can all get behind. Three Dog is upfront about how dangerous this is, but since we're braving danger anyway, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, and let me show you a fun little trick whenever you're going through this part of the game, because down there below, with all the vehicles, there's a bunch of feral ghouls. Well, you stay up here and you shoot at that bus right there. You can hit that with just about any gun. You pop a few caps in that bus's butt and enjoy the fireworks show. You won't get experience points for it, but I think sacrificing those bit of experience points is worth it when we have to keep our weapons and our badass armor in peak condition. And now Three Dog did tell us that there are going to be a bunch of super mutants waiting for us over at the Museum of Tech and in that general area. But there's also a lot of stuff along the way. Raiders. And this part in particular can be pretty tricky considering our limited arsenal, so what I decided to do here was lure one up at a time, that's it, bonk it, rinse and repeat. I don't know why they didn't rush up here all at once. I mean, I'm not going to complain about that, I just thought that was kind of interesting and made it to where my strategy actually worked out. Sweet. There's just one more pesky raider for us to deal with. Having destroyed the turrets, this one is super easy pickings. My strategy is use our firearm to deal with the turrets and use one of our melee weapons to deal with just about everything else. All said and done, we are just a hop and a skip away from the Museum of Technology, so let's go ahead and segue on over to that. And well, this didn't exactly go according to plan because I wanted to lure a super mutant over with our silenced 10mm. That is a variant of the 10mm pistol, we're allowed to use that. As we take aim, get our sneak attack crit, which doesn't do very much damage, which... not surprised because our small gun skill isn't great right now. We do end up alerting the other super mutant who's just up the stairs, and you know what I say? The more the merrier. I figure this time we'll go with a good old switchblade. We've had plenty of time to practice our batting average. With them dead, I'll go and show you where one of the 3 stealth boys is in here. And you know, it's actually funny because I didn't know there were 3 stealth boys in here up until I did this run. Like the one I just showed you, obviously. But as we go up the stairs, bank left, there's a pedestal there. I never noticed it before. And I was like, huh, wow, that's cool. Like, seriously, I've been playing this game for years, and I still find stuff I've never seen before. Well, those bad boys are going to be useful later on for sure, but we can't think about the future when we have to deal with the present. Once again, I'm just going to deal with the super mutants via melee weapon. And another reason for that is because the Silenced 10mm is a lot more fragile than I remember it being. That's not a problem, it's just something that kind of caught me off guard. As for the Switchblade versus the baseball bat, the baseball damage per individual swing will deal a bit more damage, but the Switchblade attacks a lot faster, and I'm going to try to balance out the use of those in this run. I think the baseball bat is a bit more durable as well. Feel free to correct me on that if I'm wrong. And Three Dog wasn't kidding, because the Museum of Technology is absolutely infested with these guys. That's not a problem for me, though, because I love XP snacks no matter the flavor. And currently we're at a low enough level to where we're not dealing with the likes of the Super Mutant Masters or Overlords yet. Ugh, we have to fight those guys later. We might be in a bit of a pickle. Anyway, we find our magic plot device here in the form of a radar dish, so let's go ahead and drop that off and install it, as Three Dog wants us to do. Honestly, it's pretty easy to get to the Washington Monument. All you gotta do is stay left whenever you exit the Museum of Tech, hug the left as you go down, or whichever direction. I wasn't paying attention to the compass. While sneaking, you'll end up here, and voila. And even better, up here we get some more 10mm ammo. So we do this, return to Three Dog, he tells us to go to Rivet City, so that's where we're gonna go. And well, speaking of things I've never seen before, check out the interaction that's about to play out before us. We gotta get through Harkness and talk to him, tell him why we're here. So we answer his inquiry, and then this option right here, Charisma, pops up. Something I've never seen before. And gotta say, that choice in dialogue feels pretty on brand for Butch. And I do really like that in a casual playthrough in the main timeline, we'll call it, that whenever you help out Vault 101, if you help out Vault 101, Butch can be found here in Rivet City, which means he cowboys on up from Vault 101 to Rivet City with just his Switchblade and a 10mm pistol. What a boss. And hey, speaking of awesome, Intelligence Bobblehead, why yes, I'll take that, thank you. As we're not playing Tale 2 Wastelands, it gives us a +1 to our intelligence, which I'm also perfectly fine with. When talking to Madison Lee, Butch introduces himself as a friend of the Lone Wanderer, James's child. It is a little strange to see a Vault Dweller out here, but since James hasn't come back ever since going over to Jefferson Memorial, Dr. Lee tells Butch that James was heading to Jefferson Memorial, so that's where he's gonna go. James hasn't been seen since then, so she would be worried. And of course, obstructing us is a bunch of super mutants. It's actually good that we get sent here anyway, because we will have to come back to Jefferson Memorial a little bit later on in the main plot. We're here looking for James or a sign of where he may have headed off to next. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen this guy evade all of these super mutants. I got a feeling that he also stole all of Vault 101's stealth boys on the way out. Makes sense, right? Although maybe James came here before the super mutants came over here. That seems a bit unlikely, because it seems like these guys have been holed up here for quite a bit. Either that or they chased James thinking, ooh, delicious human meat, let's eat. You know, it's kind of an interesting plot point that James makes everything worse, and that's certainly evident here. I don't think that was an intended plot point, but think about it. James leaves Vault 101, puts his kid in mortal danger, and literally thinks the Overseer is just not gonna care, despite the fact he knows that the Overseer is a raging anti-outsider zealot. Jonas dies getting James out, and we can't even ask him about Jonas. That's pretty cold, man. But we'll talk more about James a little bit later on. I will admit, going through here for the first time, I was thinking that maybe James did die here at Jefferson Memorial, because it's like, there's a bunch of super mutants here, and he came here? I don't know, man. I don't like his chances. I imagine Butch is thinking the same thing. It's like, if we can't find the man himself, well, we gotta find something, like proof he was here, or maybe something he left behind. Or his chew-toyed Vault 101 jumpsuit to bring it back to Dr. Lee and be like, yeah, he died. James jerky. Anyway, the super mutants in here aren't too bad, but there are a couple of brutes we're gonna have to contend with. Having a silenced weapon to be able to lure individual super mutants is super awesome for us, because, I mean, we can take on multiples, but it's just better and easier to manage, you know? We call that strategizing. And remember how I said we had to fight more than one brute here, multiple brutes? Well, I thought that coming into here, because typically, in the center of the rotunda, it is a super mutant brute. Going on with things I've never seen before, it's actually a centaur that's up there. Never ever seen that before. I prefer it because centaurs are way easier to kill. We give that freak of nature a good old taste of the Butch Bonkin Bash and head on up, find some holotapes. We have to listen to the 10th holotape. That tells us where James has gone. Yeah, I'm sticking to my he stole Vault 101 stealth boy from the armory theory. But since we're here, I might as well clear the super mutants out, because if we were to leave now and then come back, James will send us down here being like, hey, we can't fight. Can you go kill the rest of them for us? Thanks, Dad. That's just awesome. Although I will say that would make total sense here in this timeline, because James, he remembers Butch as being a total jerk, but at the same time, Butch has demonstrated that he's able to, survive out here. And it would be a good old test of might, because James would also remember Butch being a bit of a coward, but since that's, all hypotheticals and not happening because we're clearing out the super mutants now, that's just going to make returning here go a little bit faster for us. Now, why do I have my James stole the stealth boys theory? Because, well, it turns out that he is on the almost opposite side of the map, would have had to have traversed all of this to get to Vault 112. Now, Vault 112 is located beneath a place called Smith Casey's garage. Actually kind of an interesting place to store a vault. Good hiding spot. And apparently James used the last of his stealth boys or has an epic sneak skill, because we have a bunch of vermin in here to kill. None of them are particularly difficult. It's just kind of funny going through here because he went through here, but we gotta clean up the mess. Oh, and because I'm just gonna be that guy for a sec here, but if James came here, you see that electrical switch opening those double doors? How did that get reset? Did the mole rats do it? Maybe the radroach did it. I always thought that was a funny little inconsistency. But yeah, as Butch makes his way down here, oh, he's gonna be in for a surprise once he, gets to the center room of Vault 112. I imagine there's a lot of questions going through his mind right now, some of which we kind of went over at the start of the run here. Now, having to fight for his life and survive in the capital wasteland would have distracted him, understandably, from the thoughts in his mind. But now that he's here and he has a legit moment to kind of relax, kind of sorta, this place is still creepy. I imagine Butch would be pretty upset with James. Everything just comes back to one question. Why did he just up and leave the vault out of the blue like that? Blue, 'cause vault jumpsuits are blue. Nothing but high caliber jokes like that here on my channel. How could he be so reckless, thinking that the Overseer wouldn't react the way that he did? Why would he ever think that his child would be safe back in 101? Butch does know James, not personally, but has known him long enough to know that James is an intelligent person, so surely he would understand that there would be some consequences for this reckless action, right? But in order to ask James any of these questions, Butch has to get out of Tranquility Lane, picking up on Dr. Betty's little whistling being the key to the puzzle. Butch lines up the rhythm, activates the failsafe, puts the poor citizens of Vault 112 out of their misery, and now he can leave with James. A lot of questions coming up. Now, in the main story, in the main timeline, James is surprised to see his child here. Now, imagine his surprise seeing Butch DeLoria here, of all people. Well, as James does thank Butch for saving him, James asks the obvious question of, why are you out here? Butch responds with, well, I'm out here because of you. James not understanding or thinking that Butch is just tricking him or being silly because, again, to James, Butch is childish, and that's partially true, but not in the way he's thinking. James does notice that Butch looks a little bit upset and asks why, how are things back at the vault, how's my child, etc. And all of that ignorance just, it takes a lot for Butch to contain himself, and then he just lets him know, hey, guess what, because you left the vault, not only is your kid dead, but you also got Jonas killed, the only other doctor down there, so our home is without a doctor. I got kicked out because I tried to help your kid. Your kid helped me out and I wanted to return the favor. So Butch is not only angry at James for the fate that befell the Lone Wanderer, but James's departure left Vault 101 in utter chaos. Now, while James is a short-sighted person, obviously his intentions were good. He didn't intend for any of that to happen, but it did happen. And seeing that Butch is out here saying all these things, there's no way that can't be false, because why else would Butch be here, right? Looking defeated and very clearly holding back tears at realizing that he got his own kid killed, James does press on, not because he's heartless or doesn't care, but because now working on Project Purity gets his mind off of how he messed up. Butch does agree to get James to Rivet City because he wants to make a stop there anyway, and after that, they're done. Butch got his answers, and he's upset. He doesn't want anything to do with James. Butch is ready to head out and go his own way, which is perfect, actually. Great segue for us to go and get our bobblehead. Just masterful plot progression by yours truly, right? Now again, we have 3 to go after, but as we're heading out, as Butch makes his way around the Capital Wasteland, just trying to find himself, coping with what he's feeling right now, I decided to spice up our storytelling a little bit by adding a little extra, a flashback to the final moments of the Lone Wanderer. Now, I did say at the start that the Lone Wanderer does take out Officer Mac, his first and only kill, to save his friend Amada. Amada storms off, but she actually goes back and bumps into Butch. While that's going on, the Overseer here is trying to talk him down. And that poor Lone Wanderer, a bit too much like their dear old dad. They don't see those wards laced with poison, and the Lone Wanderer is concerned for Amada's safety as well as the other residents of Vault 101. Turns out that concern just put them in a bit of a pickle here. Now, this is also why Butch doesn't have the BB gun despite the fact we have access to it, because as our inventory gets confiscated, and they gave Butch the baseball bat, Butch would be unable to acquire it, although we can still buy one if we ever, find one on a merchant. And well, I did say only kill, but turns out that the Lone Wanderer has a bit of fight left in them, taking out Chief Security Hanlon. The Lone Wanderer, however, suffers heavy injuries in the process, and although he almost defeats the Overseer, that final gunshot is what Butch heard, shortly before being declared a traitor himself. The start of Butch's new journey has led him back out west, and the first of the 3 places we're going to go is Dunwich Building. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this is one of my favorite areas in the entire game. The entire place has real creepy atmosphere. The feral ghouls snarling makes it a little scary. And of course, the Lovecraftian part down in the deep recesses of this place is just awesome. But we are here for the bobblehead, so we don't have to do the full dungeon. And I can tell you, man, I am so glad that we're playing as a character who canonically has a Pit-Boy. Now, if you're new here, just know that if we play as a character who canonically is not the Lone Wanderer or the Courier in Fallout New Vegas, but would also not have a Pit-Boy, Butch does because he's from Vault 101, then I wouldn't be allowed to use things like VATS mode or the flashlight. Great for this place because this place is super dark. There's pretty good loot in here too. We get some Nuka-Cola Quantum, of course the bobblehead we're going after, tons of enemies to kill for XP. Now, just in case you were starting to think that we were having a bit of an easy time here, well, check out this battle with this glowing one here. Going one-on-one with this guy so far has been the hardest part of this challenge, and they hit super hard, they have that radiation explosion, they regenerate real fast. Like, the Super Mutant Brute back at Jefferson Memorial was a bit tankier, but we are getting hit way harder here. Fortunately for us, we have quite a nice supply of Stimpak to see us through. And of course using melee because we're better at it. Fitting because we're here to get the melee weapons bobblehead. Now, that glowing one was tough, but the feral ghoul roamers are nothing to bat an eye at either. They take quite a few hits to put down, and that's largely because of the quality of our weapon. They take a few hits to put down, but hey, we gotta improve our batting average somehow. After disposing of that abomination, we're gonna head up the stairs here, roll around, all that good stuff, open this door, look inside, and look at that, melee weapons bobblehead. That's 1 of 3. Excellent. Plus 10 to melee, I will happily take that, please and thank you. Next up, we're going to journey on over to Vault 106 to grab the science bobblehead. Vault 106 is northwest a bit of Vault 101. Man, I remember the first time I went through this place, and I was on edge the entire time. The creepy music, the place itself just gets more and more eerie and unsettling as you progress further in. The atmosphere here is excellent, and I think what makes it great, one of the reasons anyway, is that whenever the color changes, we'll say, and you read the terminals and you're talking to yourself, oh man, ugh. And now, in stark contrast to what I just said, there's something pretty funny coming up here, and, well, the hacking minigame for science, I could take it or leave it, I don't mind it too much. But I find it funny, maybe this is just me, but any terminal I see is easy. I have a harder time deciphering the password for those than I do for, say, hard or very hard ones. Seriously, that took me like 7 minutes of real time to get, because I'm so bad at the easy terminals. And I say it's kind of funny because, while this place is super creepy, the enemies in here, the insane survivors, I mean, they're vault dwellers with various weapons. Bypassing that easy terminal was a bigger obstacle than any of the enemies that we fought in here. But you know what? After going through hordes of feral ghoul roamers in that glowing one back at Dunwich Building, and a bunch of super mutants, it's nice to have a little change of scenery, you know? Oh man, could you imagine super mutants inhaling the gas that's being shot in here? Ugh. Or maybe it would have an unexpected effect and make them all smart, like Fox. That'd be cool. But yeah, compared to what we've been fighting, Vault Dwellers, insane or not, yeah, it's not much to write home about. But I don't mind it all the same because, again, different flavors of XP snacks are awesome. And of course, the bobblehead in here will boost our science score by +10, and we're gonna need a certain amount of it, 50. If you're familiar with story progression, it's a very good chance you know what I'm talking about. Anywho, these last two insane survivors, although they're not terribly difficult, it does take a minute because they are blocking us, we gotta block them, etc. Even use a little bit of healing, but honestly, not that bad. And would you look at that? Another bobblehead. That's 2 down. Now, before we go ahead to the National Guard Depot, those of you who have been fans for a while, I got something to tell you. Protector Caston has finally cleaned his armor. You can just smell the Abraxo cleaner coming off that. Doesn't that make you so proud? And, I mean, this is just awesome. Butch DeLoria befriending the outcasts. Just peak Tunnel Snake awesomeness. Now, you'll notice their spare parts here. That's scrap metal. That's for Walter back at Megaton. We can get 10 bottle caps per scrap metal we give him. Anyway, here at the National Guard Depot, things don't quite go according to plan. And that's pretty on brand for me, but this right here was pretty funny. That Protectron's gotta be like, cannot compute, Tunnel Snake setting self on fire, WTF.exe, abort, retry, fail. And well, I'm gonna need that laugh because going through here is no joke. I always found this to be one of the more challenging areas in the game. And considering what's at our disposal, we're gonna have to be super careful here. Now, our standard strategy of using our firearm to deal with turrets or to lure enemies, because it's a silenced weapon, and then fight the bulk of our enemies up close, absolutely have to do that here. We do not want our silenced 10mm breaking during our time here at the National Guard Depot. And of course, I hadn't angled myself correctly before destroying that Mark III turret. Yeah, it goes up to Mark VI here, and those things hit super hard. Unlike the Protectrons, they don't hit hard at all. I figure that we'll start off with our Switchblade. I'm gonna want to save our baseball bat for the likes of the Mr. Gutsies who have plasma rifle shots, and those will really hurt. Oh yeah, and we're gonna have to fight at least one sentry bot with a baseball bat. I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah, I clicked that workbench because I was like, wait, oh yeah, there are workbenches in Fallout 3, but it's for schematics only. No use to us this run. And now, speaking of Mr. Gutsy, we're gonna have to fight one of them alongside a Protectron. Only takes a couple of shots before we gotta heal up, and here I'm like, oh yeah, I have Yogwai meat, that buffs my damage output. I'ma eat it. First things first, we're gonna rush down the Protectron, although it deals a lot less damage. The less targets that damage us, the better. And we do our best to mount an offense. We're doing alright against the Mr. Gutsy here, trying to dodge shots when we can, and we have a bit of success. But then along comes Mr. Gutsy number 2. Fortunately, the first one is on the brink of death, and is now dead, so we can now focus all of our might on the remaining one. Now, you might notice that my weapons are constantly in not great condition. That's because in Fallout 3, your repair skill also determines how high you can repair your own gear. And I honestly prefer that. I think it makes more sense for the repair skill. How much you know about fixing things would determine the quality of something you personally repair. Yeah, my current go-to is Moira Brown, and her repair skill is, like, 30, I think. Fallout 3's repair system actually makes repair a skill that's always worth investing in. And at the same time, if you don't, it provides added challenge. Kinda like dodging that missile from the sentry bot by just a sliver, although the AoE damage did break our leg. And as you can see, we can use this closed-off space here in our favor. Takes a ton of hits to put this guy down, and it's right around this point where I realize our Switchblade is definitely going to break in here. That's fine, because we have the baseball bat. And it's a dang good thing that we do. It all just comes full circle, man. The Lone Wanderer gives Butch their baseball bat so that Butch can help defend his mother against radroaches. And we're out here in the Capital Wasteland where the baseball bat has literally been saving Butch's life on numerous occasions. Feels like his friend is watching out for him even now. Now, we're not quite done with the sentry bots yet. After activating the electrical switch to open that locked door, well, we gotta get this big boy outside so that we can engage in a little trick I like using in melee with melee builds. If you can circle your enemy while you're wailing on them, the AI gets a little confused, especially with a unit like the sentry bot that has multiple weapons. It won't be able to figure out what to use. This also is great on Yao Guai because they can only attack you from the front, so if you circle around them, they won't be able to face you properly. That's how I killed the one Yao Guai I got the Yao Guai meat. I didn't buy that from Granny Sparkle. Butch did knife a Yao Guai to death with the same tactics we used to take down this sentry bot. And after all that, not only are we about to get the small guns bobblehead, plus 10 to small guns, heck yeah, we can loot this entire armory. Man, I love this dungeon. It's challenging, and at the end, oh howdy is it rewarding. And there's a bit more to do, but we don't need to because we got our bobblehead, so let's skedaddle. Heading back to our home in Megaton, let's check it out. We got our 6 bobbleheads, small guns, science, intelligence, medicine, melee weapon, and strength. Hell yeah. Butch finds himself being drawn back to Rivet City. Maybe it's that sense of familiarity. There's always a bit of comfort when you're in the presence of something familiar, whether it's your environment or a person you might know. And again, for Butch, James and Butch don't exactly have great history, but he is the only person from Vault 101 whom he knows. I mean, Butch now knows that James and the Lone Wanderer were not born inside the vault, but to Butch, that really doesn't matter. In fact, it makes him a bit more curious about the Lone Wanderer, but unfortunately, that curiosity can only be satiated so much because he has to get answers from James, which he does. And of course, Butch does agree to help out around Project Purity because, well, he's braved quite a bit of the Capital Wasteland, and he's no closer to finding himself, so he might as well. And it dawns on him that the Lone Wanderer did help Butch with his mother, so Butch can help his deceased friend's father complete what he's always wanted to do. A final send-off, the settling of their debt once and for all. And that's a nice thought, Butch, because you're a good karma character, but you might be involved in a bit more than you're ready to handle, that being the Enclave. And Butch's first experience against an Enclave soldier goes pretty well. Who would have thought that a Switchblade could take out a power armor unit? Well, that's just the power of a tunnel snake, baby. Also, Protector Caston's gonna love this power armor. Now, it's important that we kill the second Enclave goon here because, well, once we're done in the Rotunda and we come back outside, that's just gonna make transitioning to the next part of the main plot a little bit easier for us. Speaking of the Rotunda, it turns out that James and most of the team are accosted by our good Colonel Autumn here. Now, I want to show you something that's pretty fun. If you manipulate the camera just right, you can interact with Colonel Autumn and even James in ways the devs never intended. Now, unfortunately, despite my best efforts, I am unable to pickpocket Colonel Autumn's ammo. It would have been nice to have a little extra. Now, I talked a bit earlier about how James kind of destroys everything he touches. Well, think about it this way. If James never got the idea in his head to go to Project Purity, the Enclave would have never come here. I mean, that's not to say the Enclave would be absent from the Capital Wasteland, but the members of Project Purity would be having a much better time right about now. Now, the consequences of James's actions wouldn't be that big of a deal if not for the fact that, he didn't leave such a mess for us to clean up, and not only that, but anytime we express disapproval or disdain for James, the Lone Wanderer gets chastised quite a bit, to the point that one of the companions will flat out not join you. It's just a shame that you can never really call him out for his actions, because the game is trying to paint him as a good person, and he does have good intentions, but boy does his selfishness ruin a lot of people's lives. At the same time, however, his selfishness is paired with a noble goal, because the idea of providing clean drinking water for the entire Capital Wasteland is solid, but he doesn't really think that one through either. Although we'll see the consequences of that in Broken Steel, so unfortunately not in this run because we're not required to go through Broken Steel. Oh, and I know it just passed, but man, I always hated going through Taft tunnels because, like, when you're trying to kill the feral ghouls, I swear the devs did it on purpose to program Dr. Lee and the other scientists to get in front of you while you're trying to kill the ghouls. And I mean, at least you can arm Daniel Egancourt with a pistol, whether it's a 10mm or a 32. But seriously, I just gave Garza 5 stim packs, and then he went and died. Garza's like that noob that hoards all the healing items and dies, and then leads to the party's death. Well, maybe not that last part, because we are just fine getting out of Taft tunnels. And man, I can't wait for our next trip to Protector Castle. We're going to be decked out in stim packs and radaway, and we're going to need that for what's to come. For the time being, however, we do get a moment's reprieve. Dr. Lee does get us inside of the Citadel. She then proceeds to tell Elder Lyons, the leader of this Brotherhood chapter, what's going on, and that decision to help out Project Purity. I still feel good about that decision, Butch. Now, if you've seen my past runs with Nephi, Boone, Raoul, and the NCR Trooper, I leave these parts largely cut out, and this is why just, a lot of dialogue in between. But again, since it's our first Vanilla 3 Fallout run, I wanted to show a bit more. And we're just in time for a level up, haven't seen one of those in a hot minute. We'll get our sneak to 50 and our small guns to 65. It was a bit of a challenge to figure out which perk I should take, because many of the ones in Fallout 3 are kinda meh. But, can't go wrong with Bloody Mess, it's 5% more damage. There is one perk there that's going to help us out tremendously in Faction Warriors, though, but you're going to have to wait until we start that to see which one. But by all means, if you want to take an early guess, leave it in the comments. So after we drop off Lee and the surviving scientist, thanks Garza, what we gotta do here is go to the terminal to uncover the location of the Gek, and while you're here, always make sure to stop by the scribe here. Any Brotherhood of Steel holotag you get 100 bottle caps for it. It's a pretty sweet deal. And once we've concluded our business with Scribe Jameson, we'll go ahead and hit up that terminal that's inexplicably sitting there, and then we'll check the vaults. Vault 87 is where we have to go. That does have one Garden of Eden creation kit also, Gek, so that's where we're gonna go. And where exactly is Vault 87? Well, we can get there by a way of Little Lamplight because the front entrance to Vault 87 is radiated out the wazoo, and we die before getting even close to it. Caston's cleaning his armor, and we are officially friends with the Outcasts. Good job, Butch. The Outcasts know tunnel snakes rule. Now, one of the scribes tells us we can get to Vault 87 by way of Little Lamplight Caverns, however it is occupied. But turns out that Butch being Butch is able to get in rather easily. Look at that child at heart exchange with McCready here. It's the most Butch thing ever. However, this is not the only thing we have child at heart for. Turns out this is rather useful here in Little Lamplight. Before we can make further use of that perk, Mayor McCready tells us that we can go through a place called Murder Pass to get to Vault 87. However, there is another way, and there is a terminal that's currently out of operation. But turns out there's a resident of Little Lamplight who happens to be tech-savvy, a guy named Joseph, so we're gonna go find him. But first, being able to buy from Knick-Knack here, you need child at heart. And it turns out he's got a bit of stuff we can use. At 10mm ammo, the more the merrier, can never have enough of it in this run. And once we're done resupplying courtesy of our little buddy here, we're gonna go look for Joseph. Now, he's not too difficult to find. He tends to be in... I always forget the name of the area we're headed to. And on the bottom floor. Now, not only is Joseph tech-savvy, but turns out this little fella is also quite the barber, so maybe he and Butch can trade skills. Or Butch can teach this kid, although with Butch being forced out of Vault 101, I think his barber career has been cut rather short. And all we gotta do is ask him, and he will guide us straight to that terminal. Now, this is an awesome way to take because with Joseph repairing the terminal here, and once we hack into it and bypass and get the password, we can skip Murder Pass outright. And, well, I think Butch would 100% take that shortcut. Not that I blame him, going through Murder Pass with what we have would be pretty hard. Now, I could boost our science skill a bit by proxy of Mentats, because Mentats in this game give you +5 to Perception and Intelligence, but really, no need to. I actually try to stay away from using chems, not completely, but I keep it to a minimum because there's no equivalent to Fixer in this game. So that means to cure addiction that we had to go to one of the doctors, like Doc Church or whomever. But yeah, dropping a save, and we are now inside of Vault 87. And we get ourselves a nice healthy chunk of XP. They're gonna bump up our melee weapons to 74, sneak to 60. And after thinking about it, I'm gonna go ahead and take the perk Finesse, which is actually gonna offset Butch's terrible luck special pretty well. You know, that 2 base luck for Butch makes a lot of sense in this continuity. Now, before we head on and tackle the meat of this dungeon, we're gonna do a little bit of backtracking here. Well, sort of, because we technically haven't explored this area yet. But at the end of Murder Pass, if you go through here the conventional way, there's a room that's got quite a bit of useful supplies in it. We got ourselves yet another stealth boy, very nice. And yes, I was so tunnel visioned, I walked right on top of that pressure plate. And, gotta say, we took quite a bit of damage. Not as much as I was expecting, though. I've gotten killed from full health casually triggering that thing before. We'll go ahead and snag that Nuka-Cola Quantum while we're here, retrace our steps, and it's time to start off with the dungeon of Vault 87. Starting off with the thing that Butch used to be afraid of, a few radroaches. Now, a quick little rundown of Vault 87. Vault 87 is basically the home headquarters of the super mutants here in the Capital Wasteland. No pressure. I'd call the radroaches an appetizer to the main course, but that feels underwhelming and gross. You just thought of it, didn't you? Just chomping down on some radroach meat? And gotta say, we have a real strong start against this pair of super mutants here. The one's almost gone, has a few bars of health. We're gonna go close the door, and then rearm ourselves with a melee weapon. I figure since it got broke inside of the National Guard depot, let's go ahead and use the switchblade to start things off. And because we did so much damage with our silencer, that first super mutant goes down real fast. And now that we're one-on-one, his buddy goes down. Not as fast, but it's still pretty easy. There's a lot to loot here, but I actually want to be careful because, well, let's just say that what's coming up is going to give us quite a bit of stuff to drop off to our buddy Caston, but we'll get to that later. Now, the 3 super mutants weren't too bad to take out. However, it's been a hot minute since we've seen a super mutant brute, so let's open the door and say hello, shall we? Now, our weapon condition might not be great, but because our melee has gotten so high, we're dealing a bit better damage than usual. It's maybe not offsetting our weapon's quality, but it's definitely making a difference compared to when we fought a super mutant brute earlier in the run. But yeah, like I said before, having the limitations on repair that Fallout 3 system for repair has makes this a bit more challenging, and I do like that. That said, if you do prefer the New Vegas version of repairing, like, that's cool, man. I'm not here to tell you how to enjoy the games you play. That's just my opinion. And now the super mutant that was on that walkway, lowering him down, we're gonna use our flashlight so that he sees it, comes down and checks it out. It's not the most practical way to lure someone down, but you know, it gets the job done, and that's cool. And we're gonna go ahead and lure that super mutant brute and start whacking him, and I gotta say, I'm real happy with this kill. Watch this. Health is low, about to finish him off, and one last swing, we take off that brute's head. I didn't know that Butch enchanted his switchblade with Vorpal. So hey, you know how we've accumulated 4 stealth boys throughout the course of this run? Well, my friends, we're about to finally put those to use. Using the first of our 4, not here, right about now. Observe! These 2 super mutants who are brutes. That's a little scripted encounter, and they do get more difficult as you level up. But we don't gotta worry about them at all. Instead, we can storm this room here as we just did, loot it, and we gotta be quick though because we got some more super mutants to avoid. No Logan's Loophole or Day Tripper in this game, so every second really does count. Perfect too, because we're in the next area. Open this door here, and thanks to our silencer, we can pot shot this guy. Silencer plus Stealth Boy means he doesn't see us, and a little bit of bloody mess fun there. I was hoping there'd be a Stealth Boy in one of those saves. Sometimes there is. But anyway, we're about to meet one of the intelligent super mutants here in the Capital Wasteland, my boy Fox. He agrees to help us out if we release him, and, well, being that we're playing as Butch, yeah, he's definitely gonna do that. But hey, no big deal, right? We have 3 stealth boys remaining, and we can sneak right on over to where Fox told us to go, do what we gotta do over there, and come back, right? Well, entering that room starts off alright. We enter, go inside, sneak past because we're under the effects of a stealth boy, hit the fire alarm to release the doors, and as we backtrack, I bump into the super mutant brute, and we get spotted. But apparently that Sid guy, the human who was trapped, goes after the super mutant brutes instead of us, so I definitely appreciate that. And gotta say, Fox is a much welcome addition to our forces here. Now, not gonna show the entire journey up to where the Gek is because, well, as you're about to see here, With Fox at our side, and how much health our good boys got, these super mutant brutes really are nothing to write home about. We're gonna help out too, of course, because we want to try to speed things along here. As you can see, Fox is an absolute tank, and with him at our side, the danger of old 87 has virtually disappeared. That said, we don't want to go too far ahead of him, because if we do, he'll stop, so we gotta kinda go at his pace, but hey, I'm alright with that. Now, we could go get the Gek ourselves, but because Fox is immune to radiation and that chamber is highly irradiated, yeah, he's doing it. And I like to think that while Fox is getting the Gek for Butch, Butch is there just thinking about how things have been going lately. Not too long ago, he was afraid of a few radroaches. Now he's out here in the capital wasteland, having adventures, taking out super mutants, ghouls, raiders, all that good stuff. And none of that would have happened were it not for the initiative that Butch took to try and get the Lone Wanderer outside of Vault 101, instead getting effectively thrown out himself because, again, he was associated with the Lone Wanderer, was declared a traitor, all that good stuff. Now, things are going swimmingly, well, up until we hit this room here. Being surprised by the sudden appearance of what looks like a pulse grenade, it goes off, and it's goodnight Irene for Butch. He has been captured by the Enclave. And well, unfortunately for Colonel Autumn, he's about to find out that it's impossible to get answers out of a tunnel snake. I mean, apparently Colonel Autumn doesn't roll, and that's on full display when Butch just hurls out a couple of F-bomb expletives at the good Colonel. And then the Colonel getting recalled by President Eden, well, I'm sure that's got Butch all sorts of confused. Like, why would the President of the Enclave want to talk to me? Oh yeah, right, I'm the leader of the Tunnel Snakes. Even this President knows how much butt we kick. And we are oh so close to the next level up, and that's alright. We're gonna suit up, get ready, open this door, everybody do the dinosaur. And just as we're about to make our way outside, we get held up by an Enclave officer, and I gotta say, I've always gotten a kick out of the charisma check here. It's just awesome. And I don't know about you, but I can totally see Butch pulling that off with some random Enclave goon. And well, speaking of Enclave goons, what looks like smooth sailing for a little bit, well, turns out there is yet another wrench thrown in our gears. Because it turns out that Colonel Autumn overrides President Eden's order. That's a real nice show don't tell of just how fractured the Enclave is. And you bet your sweet fern that we're gonna be using another stealth boy to bypass this encounter. And I mean, as you can see, we're already pretty loaded with some tech stuff that Protector Caston is just gonna love. But before we make our way to President Eden, we're gonna bank a left here and make our way inside of Colonel Autumn's personal room. I always come in here, even though we don't need the energy weapons bobblehead, I like to get it because it's the only time of the game you can get this item. But another reason why I like to come here is because in Colonel Autumn's footlocker, there is a holotape for the Zack self-destruct. Now, I know those of you who have been around the channel for a while are probably sick of hearing me say that, but keep in mind, this is always somebody's first video, and the viewer might not actually know this is a thing. Plus, hey, opening up that footlocker gave us experience points to the point where we leveled up. That was pretty sweet. I figure a rank in Little Leaguer won't hurt to boost our melee weapon skill by a little bit. Oh, and by the way, make sure that when you get this holotape that you listen to it. It's not enough to just have it in your inventory. You have to hear it out in full, and that's how you get the self-destruct sequence. You can see the dialogue on screen. I always make sure to keep the subtitles on, because that way y'all can follow along with what's going on screen. Also, I find this holotape to be pretty interesting because you get to hear Colonel Autumn's personal thoughts on himself and Eden, and he doesn't trust the president, probably for a pretty good reason. It's just cool little extra tidbits like that that really make it feel worth exploring this place, as dangerous as it is. And wouldn't you know, we are about to meet up with President Eden, a Zack's computer, and wouldn't you know, we just got the self-destruct code to set this guy off. I should probably work on that phrasing. But yeah, this feels like the most organic way to complete this little part of the main story here. There are skill checks with it, but the skill checks here are pretty silly as far as writing goes. We actually don't even need to do any of the skill checks. All you gotta do is tell Eden that you'll take the FEV virus and he'll just let you bounce. Now, that might seem a little bit silly, but not really, because, like, even though we are a, wild card, it still is Eden's best chance of seeing his plans go through because, well, Colonel Autumn's not going to stick that modified FEV virus in Project Purity's terminal, so maybe we will. And it's kind of interesting to think about that in the context of this AU, that Butch would not die if he in fact did stick the FEV virus modified into the terminal, because he was born in a vault. But on that note, yeah, I don't see Butch doing that. And with Fox at our side, we can go ahead and prepare for the assault against Jefferson Memorial. With, you see that big fella, Liberty Prime? Yeah, he's gonna be helping us out here. Now, this is another part I typically keep out of my Fallout 3 runs, but this time I figure I'll keep in a little bit of it, just to show why. Now, on one hand, it is cool to have a giant deathbot as an ally, just destroying the Enclave in front of us with no difficulty. But at the same time, Liberty Prime is pretty OP, and there's not much danger involved with escorting him to Jefferson Memorial, because that's basically what it is. I mean, yeah, you can't take damage from airstrikes and stuff. You can die on the way, but it's very unlikely. There are plenty of Enclave goons to loot here, although we're not going to really bother with them too much because, well, we're at the end of the game, so we're not going to be paying Protector Caston any more trips. So let's go ahead and cut straight over to the interior of Jefferson Memorial, where it's us, Sarah Lyons, and Fox ready to take it to the Enclave. And having Sarah Lyons in tow with us is a reason why I don't ban the use of companions, because she's with us, so no harm in bringing Fox along. And Fox, in particular, is one of 3 companions who is very important to bring along for this final battle, specifically the conclusion. And since we are at the final battle, I am much more liberal in my use of chems. And gotta say, the final battle starts off pretty great, actually. We lure out one Enclave soldier, and as he banks the corner hill, he still doesn't see us, by the way. Thanks, Silencer. Yeah, that's good night, Irene. I'd like that with a side order of Dunyan rings, please. With the assistance of both Sarah Lyons and Fox, we're able to just straight up bulldoze through the Enclave. Like, I was surprised at how fast this went. I thought they'd put up a bit more of a fight than that. As for the final Enclave soldier in this room, what better way to take him out than to use the Lone Wanderer's baseball bat, which we got from the very beginning of the run. And since Colonel Autumn forced James's hand, well, we're gonna bestow a bit of poetic wasteland justice upon this good colonel. I do try for the speech check because there is a percentage. I do think Butch would give it a shot, and I do see him not being able to talk down Colonel Autumn, so let's fight. And well, Colonel Autumn isn't exactly hard to kill. A few swings of our baseball bat, and he's down. And with our backup, we're able to make very short work of these last 2 Enclave soldiers. So we, as Butch, have finished James's work, fulfilled his dream, James being the father of the Lone Wanderer, the friend who helped us out at the beginning, and whose debt we can never really truly fully repay. Now, you might be thinking, what about the return to Vault 101? Well, no. Butch would get the transmission from Amada, because Amada, well, if she has to rely on Butch, that's, desperation makes for strange bedfellows. And though Amada means well, she does tell Butch in the secret transmission that his mother did pass away. She couldn't take what happened to Butch, and her drinking got worse until one day she just never woke up. Now, Amada is well-intentioned with this statement, but hearing that, this has the opposite effect, however. This is devastating news, and ensures that Butch will never return because he now has no reason to go back to Vault 101. And as such, he never forgives James for leaving Vault 101 in the first place. I really hope you guys enjoyed that run. Now, just know that I actually do have a Fallout New Vegas Butch DeLoria run on the backlog. I meant to upload it quite a while ago. But, well, Faction Warriors happened. But for now, next Fallout 3 run is Fallout 3 as Preston Garvey. But we're going to be going to the Mojave as a surprise character. No, it's not Butch. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you at the next run. Later.